Welcome to this explainer. You know, if you just glance at the news lately, it honestly feels like total chaos. But if we cut through all that noise and look directly at the underlying data from the Daily Tech Reader, this really clear, kind of startling pattern emerges. Today's top stories are actually converging into these massive, interconnected global shocks. So today, we're diving into the era of connected crises, looking at how geopolitics, artificial intelligence, and climate are all crashing together.
Now, let's start with this quote straight from the source material, because, wow, does it perfectly set up our three major stories today. The world is just no longer dealing with isolated events. We're dealing with compounding crises. And compounding is absolutely the operative word here. A disruption in one system immediately fractures another. It's like a giant domino effect that touches everything from the global economy right down to your local air quality.
All right, let's get into Pillar 1. War reaches global infrastructure. We're looking at how the geopolitical map is being completely redrawn as the US-Iran conflict enters a highly volatile new phase.
And this shift is just absolutely critical. Strikes are moving away from strictly military targets, and they're hitting civilian lifelines. We're talking power networks, ports, and desalination plants in places like Kuwait. So this isn't just a battlefield tactic anymore, right? It is a rapidly expanding civilian services crisis. Think about it. When you take out a desalination plant or a power grid during the extreme heat of a Middle Eastern summer, you effectively weaponize the climate itself against the local population. It's a huge deal.
And you can see the immediate economic ripple effect captured right here by this massive 16% weekly surge in crude oil prices. With both the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea facing severe shipping and supply disruptions, our global energy security is under direct threat. And obviously, this doesn't just stay local. This translates directly into higher transportation costs, way more expensive manufacturing, and rising household utility bills for, well, everyone across the globe.
But while physical infrastructure is under fire in the Gulf, digital infrastructure is facing its own massive reckoning on Wall Street. So that brings us to Pillar 2, the AI market reality check.
This one is wild, because it signals a massive investor shift. Apple actually overtaking NVIDIA in market value tells us that investors are pivoting, big time. They're moving away from the companies building the underlying AI hardware and moving toward companies positioned to distribute and actually monetize AI for everyday consumers. The market is basically asking a very blunt question. Who can actually turn these massive corporate AI budgets into durable, long-term revenue?
Simultaneously, we're seeing the fallout of this reset. The semiconductor index, which, tracks the market performance of the companies actually manufacturing these chips, took a massive hit, dropping roughly 17% in July. Wall Street is officially hitting the brakes on pure hype. They are now demanding measurable, real-world adoption and revenue data rather than just these optimistic forecasts of future AI model demand.
And guess what? This battle over digital infrastructure is deeply geopolitical, too. Washington and Beijing are packaging their strategies in starkly different ways. The U.S. is heavily pushing a model of private sector-led frontier innovation. Meanwhile, Beijing used the recent Shanghai AI conference to pitch open-source, affordable AI directly to emerging economies. Ultimately, they're actively competing for control of the digital standards that are going to govern global technology for decades to come.
So from digital clouds to literal clouds of smoke, let's look at Pillar 3, Climate Disrupts the World Cup, which is testing our infrastructure on a continental scale.
Massive amounts of Canadian wildfire smoke have pushed deep into the U.S., creating an immediate public health emergency right as 80,000 fans gather in New Jersey for the Sunday final between Argentina and Spain. I mean, it perfectly illustrates how shifting atmospheric circulation can turn distant, rural fires into major urban disruptions. It's forcing sports leagues and governments to treat air quality as a critical, unignorable piece of their event logistics.
And remember, this event doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It overlaps with extreme heat waves and those devastating Texas floods. Because of this compounding threat, public health officials are stressing practical steps. Check local air conditions constantly, strictly limit your outdoor exposure, and definitely use an N95 respirator if you have to go out. And importantly, do not assume you're safe inside. Indoor air is not automatically protected without proper HEPA filtration, which stands for high-efficiency particulate air, to actually pull those fine smoke particles right out of your indoor environment.
Bringing this all together, the big key takeaway from this explainer is a total paradigm shift. Energy supply chains, global health, climate resilience, and national security, they can no longer be managed as separate, isolated silos. No way. From the Strait of Hormuz to the boardrooms of Silicon Valley, all the way to a packed soccer stadium in New Jersey, the risks are entirely compounded and deeply, deeply intertwined.
Which leaves us with a critical, highly provocative question regarding the very systems we rely on every single day.
If our energy, technology, and health are now one deeply connected system, is our current infrastructure built to survive the domino effect? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep learning and stay curious.